Hi friends, and welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk Elvis.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the things that happened from my side of the story. There's been a lot written and a lot said about what happened to me, but never from my side.
So a little disclaimer before we start today, I do not make these episodes to give excuses for any of Elvis's choices or behaviors. I simply add context, research, and explanation into topics that I am passionate about relating back to Elvis because I truly believe that he deserves it. We have got one of the most important episodes that I have ever done, will ever do, today. We're getting into it today, so buckle up. It's going to be chock full of information. Grab a notepad, honestly, if you want to. If you want to take notes, I've worked really hard on this episode to make sure that it is accurate and I am giving you guys absolutely the correct information. So if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to comment, message me, whatever. If I cannot answer it, I will make sure to get you to someone who can. Without further ado, let's just get right on into the episode. So Billy Smith was once quoted saying, from 1974 on, Elvis just didn't feel good. So we know that Elvis died in 1977. That's a 3-year gap where Elvis pushed himself beyond his limits while he was sick. Most everybody knows that Elvis would have greatly benefited from taking a break or just getting away from his job for a while. Going to see a medical professional that could help him with his numerous illnesses that were literally taking over his body. But there are a few main problems with that wishful thinking. Number one, Elvis's ego. We know Elvis had a huge ego. If you don't know that, Elvis had a huge ego. He never wanted to seem, I've said this so many times, but he never wanted to seem weak, especially in front of his guys. In front of his fans especially. He never wanted people to know that there was something wrong with him, something he couldn't control, something he couldn't handle. His ego was very large, and if people figured out that something was taking over his body, controlling him and what he could do, that's a huge blow to your ego, obviously. Number two, he wanted his health kept private. Now that isn't just an Elvis Presley thing, that is an everybody thing. Back then, everybody wanted that kept private. Your health information, details, no matter how sick you were, you didn't go around and talk about it, and you didn't share that with people. Maybe even sometimes you didn't share it with people in your own family, let alone the entire world that wants to know what's going on with you. And the guys that work for you that think you're the coolest dude ever, you don't want them to know that you're not feeling good, and it's embarrassing. Some of the things Elvis had going on, I would be embarrassed. A normal human being would be embarrassed of some of those things that he had wrong with him. So he didn't want anybody to know that he wasn't feeling good. And most of all, his demanding lifestyle. It's very hard to say, you know what, I just am not feeling that great today. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a day off. You don't get a day off when you're doing what he did, and you don't get a day off from people wanting to know everything about you. The people who were literally outside his gates every single day, the people who were in his trees trying to look into his windows, like, he didn't get a break from that. It was always there, and that lifestyle that he had built for himself wasn't going anywhere. Before leaving for a tour, Elvis would say goodbye to his Aunt Nash, and she would always say to him, Elvis, I wish you didn't have to leave. And he would respond with, I wish I didn't have to leave too, Aunt Nash, but there are too many people depending on me. Aunt Nash was once quoted saying, he gave and gave and gave and pushed himself beyond endurance while he created a lifestyle of luxury and comfort for those that he cared for. While there are other topics and misconceptions that I think are vastly misunderstood in Elvis's life, I think the true reason behind Elvis's death and physical well-being are two of the least understood topics of discussion surrounding Elvis and his life. Today, I wanted to list the illnesses and diseases that he struggled with throughout his life, because I think once you fully understand and comprehend that Elvis would have died when he was in his 40s, when he did, even if he didn't take drugs, or even if he wasn't Elvis Presley, the rock and roll sensation, you can better understand Elvis Presley as a human once you can appreciate and learn his full journey, and what was really going on with him. You know what I mean? Like, you can really understand him better and therefore appreciate him more. So that is why I think this is such an extremely important topic. And I also think, like I said before, there are so many misconceptions about Elvis, how he died, what kind of drugs he was taking, why he was taking drugs. I'm gonna try my best today to list pretty much every illness that he had going on with his body. I won't get into too much detail with each illness. That could honestly, you could break down each one for a separate episode on its own. But I will give you a basic idea of the effect each one has on your body. I will be listing most every illness that Elvis had, that I could scrounge up and give you a basic idea of each one, and what they can do to your body. So starting off, number 1, chronic insomnia. Now, Elvis struggled to sleep since he was a toddler. We know this. If you've read Destined to Die Young, you really get a good picture painted in your head of what insomnia can do to a person and what it has done to Elvis Presley. He could go days and days and days without getting more than 2 hours of sleep. It resulted in impulsive actions, sleepwalking, compromised immune system, and introduced him to dexedrine, the drug that cemented Elvis's confidence in prescription medication. Number 2, his heart. So when the autopsy was performed on Elvis after his death, his heart was described like this. When the enlarged heart was removed from Elvis's chest and held up for the others in the room to view, instead of looking like red muscle, this heart looked like brown flab. A normal heart weighs 375 grams, and Elvis's heart weighed 520 grams. It was a sign of hypertension, but in this case, perhaps congestive heart failure. I could do an entire episode on Elvis's heart and Elvis's liver and Elvis's whatever, but his heart was in really bad shape. And as you can see from the people who performed the autopsy on him, it was literally not even muscle at the point where when he died, it weighed so much, it was so enlarged, and it literally was like brown nothing. Like it was bad, and that was in his body when he died. So number 3, his liver. Now, Elvis's mother, Gladys, suffered from heart and liver failure. She was not a raging alcoholic, actually. I could do a whole episode on this. There has been so many rumors speculating Gladys's death, saying that she was an alcoholic and she ruined her liver that way. I'm not going to get into that now. That is not true. I could do a whole episode on that if you'd want me to. But according to Anthony William, the author of Liver Rescue, he said, dark circles or sunken eyes for weeks or months mean there's a hidden problem, a liver problem. I will insert a picture of Gladys. Look at her eyes. Look at a picture of Elvis's eyes as well. I will insert it right here. That characteristic has been in them, especially in the younger years for Elvis. Gladys was also incredibly swollen, just as Elvis would be during the last year of his life. At the time of Elvis's death, his liver was twice the size of a normal liver. Number 4, his lungs. Alpha-1 is a disease that can attack the lungs, the liver, or both. Alpha-1 is a antitrispin deficiency, and it's an inherited condition that raises your risk for lung or liver disease. Lung and liver disease. If the alpha-1 proteins aren't the right shape, they get stuck in the liver cells and they can't reach the lungs. So basically, this is a whole disease. The history of this disease in Elvis's family is very interesting to learn about, because Elvis was not the first one who supposedly had this. But I can make an entire video, again, just on this one disease because it is so detailed. But it's tied into Elvis's family tree in a very interesting way. Also, going off the lungs, he had breathing problems often, and even hired a masseur to pound on his back to break up the mucus filling up his lungs. Labored breathing led to his lips and stomach distending because he was swallowing a lot of air to get more oxygen. So another swelling kind of thing that no, it wasn't because Elvis was fat and he ate too much food. His bowels. So this one, when I was talking about in the beginning of this episode, it probably was, I don't know, maybe it wasn't embarrassing for him. Maybe it was just something that was a part of his life from literally an infant, so he was used to it, but it can be seen as something very, very embarrassing, especially when you're talking to people who don't, you know, who think that Elvis is just like this guy in leather that is just so awesome and so cool and so sexy or whatever. When you learn that he has these kind of issues, I can see why Elvis would be like, oh, no, you can't, I don't want them to know. Elvis struggled majorly with constipation. He would be left feeling unbearably uncomfortable for days and days, and it bothered him so much that he even included it into his TCB pledge, which reads, more self-respect, more respect for fellow man, respect for fellow students and instructors, respect for all styles and techniques, body conditioning, mental conditioning, meditation for calming and stilling of the mind and body, sharpen your skills, increase mental awareness for all those who might choose a new outlook and personal philosophy, freedom from constipation, TCB, all techniques into one. So this bowel dysfunction caused his megacolon, which was a main factor in Elvis's death. His bowel ailments also affected his digestive system. Constipation was also a long-running struggle within Elvis's family tree. Again, genetic. The intense intestinal pain became one of the main reasons that he took medication. His stomach was so swollen because of his megacolon, which was so full and could not be drained. Again, could make a whole other video on the megacolon issue, but it was one of the main reasons that Elvis was in his stomach swelled up, not because he ate too much food. He was not fat. Next, we have the compromised immune system. So another big word, hypogammaglobulinemia. Say that 10 times fast. That means you have an underperforming immune system. This was indicated by his decreased levels of immunoglobulin A and G and decreased numbers of T cells and B cells. Immunoglobulins are antibodies that play a critical role in destroying like bacteria and viruses that invade your body. And Elvis struggled with infections all the time in his nose, his sinuses, his bronchi, his lungs, his ears, his eyes, and his gastrointestinal tract. I have a section from Destined to Die Young that I want to read really quick. Essentially, hypogammaglobulinemia at its root is the failure of the immune system to make enough antibodies called immunoglobulins. Without those antibodies, people with this disorder are plagued with more frequent infections, including bronchitis, ear infections, meningitis, pneumonia, tonsillitis, sinus infections, and skin infections. We also know that Elvis had pneumonia a ton, and he performed with pneumonia a ton. Left untreated, this condition can lead to Crohn's disease, damage to the heart, lungs, and digestive tract, repeated infections, and maybe ultimately even cancer. Going off my last point, it is very possible that Elvis may have suffered from common variable immunodeficiency disease, which is characterized by hypogammaglobulinemia and reoccurrent infections. Known complications of this disease that Elvis suffered from are anemia, rheumatoid arthritis, intestinal infections, enlarged spleen, enlarged liver. According to Sally Hodel, it's hard to diagnose this even today. Taking an average of 6 or 7 years, it is often not diagnosed until the 3rd or 4th decade of life. The first credited case occurred in 1953, but a standard definition was not agreed upon until the 90s, and criteria was not published until 1999. If Elvis suffered from this immune system disorder, it most likely would have gone undiagnosed and untreated. Next, we have secondary glaucoma, which caused him migraine headaches, hypersensitivity to light, stage lights, not good, severe pain in eyes. He had a condition called ARTHRITIS. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it is a swelling and inflammation in the colored ring around your eye's pupil, and this condition can be caused by genetic predisposition to certain inflammatory autoimmune diseases, including reactive arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease, both of which Elvis suffered from. This condition is very serious and can lead to blindness, which Elvis was very close to reaching during his life. Next, his urinary system was not functioning properly. His nurse Tish Hinley said once that there was even talk of dialysis because when they did the blood work, his results would be literally off the wall. This can be caused by decreased inflow of blood to the kidneys, which can be caused by congestive heart failure. Next, we have arthritis. Elvis was caused severe pain by arthritis throughout his body, and it impacted his muscular system and skeletal system. 5 bodily systems in jeopardy here: the circulatory system, the respiratory system, digestive, nervous, and immune. They were all directly impacted from disorders and diseases he had since birth, and also prior to prescription drug use. It's also very interesting to see the history of health problems within Elvis's family tree, like I said before, and how many of these diseases were genetic and were passed down to him, rendering him out of control of these things. So if you'd like me to make a video on these certain topics, please let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to put out that content for you guys. I just want to read 2 passages from Destined to Die Young that really spoke to me when I was trying to research some of this topic from this book. So this is on page 240 if you have the book. Sally says, "None of the guys," referring to the Memphis Mafia, "knew how sick Elvis really was." In quotes, "Elvis wanted to keep that stuff private. He didn't even like anybody else talking about their health issues around him." End quote. That's from Nurse Tish. Memphis Mafia members would go on to write about many situations when too many drugs seemed to play the starring role, but none of them knew the full story at any given time. Even though they spent nearly every day with Elvis, the guys were unaware of the extent of the health issues, and thus their interpretation of his medication use was limited. Their recollections were based on partial information, which often led to mythology surrounding the truth about Elvis. Elvis's declining health and increased prescription drug use went hand in hand, yet most people in the inner circle knew about one and not the other. Sally also says on page 181, "As a singer battling constant illnesses, prescription medication became a crutch to meet the physical demands of his demanding schedule, which ultimately added another problem for Elvis to battle: addiction." Elvis's struggle with prescription drug use is so deeply detailed, where it's like if anyone makes a comment on like Elvis was a druggie, Elvis was fat, Elvis, whatever, like you literally know, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, you know nothing about this man's health conditions. He had so much going on where it genuinely blows my mind that he ever lived the life that he did, doing what he did every single day. I cannot imagine being that sick and going out and doing what he did. It's just, I have so much respect for him. That is all for today's video. If you guys would like some more information on anything in this video, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and give it a thumbs down if you did not enjoy it. And if you're watching this video on Instagram, make sure to follow me for more Let's Talk Elvis videos, where we can discuss and chat about not only the amazing entertainer that Elvis was, but the even more amazing human being that he was. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.